And what's sad is I won the universe in 18 and he only lived to 21. So I really sit there and I think, man, was your pro card worth it? I can...
Exactly. Is the pro card worth juicing yourself to death? Obvious answer is no. What is up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. I said it differently. I put some oomph on it. ASMR sip, which was a miss. I just took the L on that. Coupon code Russo, ASMR spritz, coupon code Russo, Young LA. Today, I'm going to be reacting to a video that has popped off. The hard truth about bodybuilding and steroids. 4 things you should know before you start. I just want to give like a graphic warning that this is kind of like a very sad story. And if you're in an upper mood, maybe this ain't for you. Otherwise, like the video, helps rank my channel, and write your thoughts below. You know, this one's gonna definitely, it's what I harp on, basically. It's sad. So I'm gonna set the speed at 1.75 to start. I might dump it to 1.5.
Again, my name is Jeff Christian. I was a top NPC competitor, national competitor, and in my younger days...
So this is a real OG. Got the fucking pro card, competed, helped multiple people turn pro. So this guy's opinion is weighted, and it matters. He's been in the fucking game, and he's been in the fire. So just right off the bat, this is someone walking the walk, giving you insight.
I was a better bodybuilder than I was somebody that knew anything about bodybuilding. In my older days, after all the trauma from injuries and car accidents and everything, I was a better coach than I was a bodybuilder, but was able to get my IFBB Pro card at the universe in 2018. I have, again, coached guys by the hundreds, from guys that just wanted to get in shape to pro level. And my specialty in coaching was the last 2 weeks, preparing guys for contest, knowing how to get that 3D shrink wrapped look, and knowing how to manipulate water and all of that stuff. So let's talk about the fact that you want to pursue bodybuilding. And this is your dream. This is something you've always dreamed about, and you're going to do it. So I want to give you 4 things to consider long before we get into the nitty gritty over the next few weeks about steroids and insulin and growth hormone and IGF-1 and peptides and all of those other things that you need to have a working knowledge of. And that is this. These 4 things are incredibly important for you to understand. And I'm going through these because I feel like one of the most important things that young people do is they accumulate bad knowledge, bad information. When I look at the internet and I go through and I see everything that is written, most of the time I laugh. I know most pros sit down, and if they look at that, they laugh as well, because quite honestly, most of what you see in forums just isn't true. People don't know what the guys really take. People surmise, they think they know, but let me give you a good example. At the universe one year, I was talking to a competitor, and he was a pro. He is no longer alive. Unfortunately, he passed away last year much younger than me, which is very sad. But we sat there and talked most of the day, and he asked me... So he just caveats that this bodybuilder he's talking about is no longer with us. Let's see what he was saying when he was with him. He said, well, what did you do this year? And I told him, and I went through my stacks, my cycles. I went through how I did things, how I did my prep, all of that stuff. And he looked at me and he said, man, I'm just going to tell you. He said, I did things this year that quite honestly I've never done. He said, and I did things that were dangerous. I retired in 2019, and he passed away, man, just like I think last year. And what's sad is I won the universe in 18 and he only lived to 21. So I really sit there and I think, man, was your pro card worth it? I can...
Exactly. Is the pro card worth juicing yourself to death? Obvious answer is no. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You can tell this guy made it to OG status because he wasn't sprinting. And he, again, crossed paths with a dude that was sprinting, felt like that was the way to go about it, met the ultimate payment to the piper as far as pushing it that hard.
Honestly say that it's not. But here are 4 things that you've got to consider. And you need to understand one very important principle. And that principle is this, that you cannot buy time. Time is your most precious commodity. And once you spend it, you can't get it back. So in your pursuit of bodybuilding, one of the things we're going to talk about is that you are going to expend large amounts of time. You only control your choices. You don't control consequences. Now, I say that for this reason. There is a verse in the Bible that says, whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap. And unfortunately, what you sow in bodybuilding does not reap health. It reaps just the opposite, as you can see by all of the men and the women who seemingly are just dying off in large amounts over the last few years. The very first thing I want to share with you is this. The chances of you making it to the pros are extremely small. You have a better chance, in my estimation, to make it to the NBA or the NFL or the Major League Baseball, because you do not have to be genetically gifted in one specific aspect of your physique to make it to those leagues. You can have multiple defects or whatever as far as muscle insertions or the way the muscle is shaped or whatever. Those things don't factor in to those leagues. But in bodybuilding, your insertions have to be right, the muscle bellies have to be right, you want to be a certain height and be able to have fascia that stretches, all of those things, be able to build that kind of muscle. So it's an incredibly difficult sport to make it in.
So I kind of half agree with this. I think with men's physique, pretty much anyone who, again, works hard, enhanced for a decade, has a shot to get a pro card in men's physique. Now, I assume he's talking about legit open bodybuilding, to which I 100% agree with, but the chance of getting a pro card with physique and classic physique available, the game has changed, and you don't have to be as genetically gifted as you used to be. Back when he competed, it was extremely difficult to get a pro card. My 2 cents is it's changed over the years because they have changed the industry, letting more people turn pro, and the OGs like him will be like, you know, watering down the industry, but they're just adapting to the influx of people interested in bodybuilding. That's how you grow a business. You have to give some dopaminergic reward of chasing this card, making it easier to get to stay in the competing system. But I do agree that it's very difficult to turn pro as a open competitor. You are a special mind if you're gonna turn pro as an open competitor, number one. And number two, right, you're fighting your genetics, insertions, and the way you respond to drugs. So if those aren't in your cards, I do agree with them. But I just want to say that getting a pro card in physique or classic, if you put in the work, enhance for 10 years and actually know what the fuck you're doing, I think it's possible to, again, get a pro card and retire, right? Not progress as a pro, but to get the card. I feel like local level, I've been to enough local level shows where I've seen some of the competitors in physique and classic, and I've seen some shows where you could skate with a card and the people didn't show up that day. I've seen other shows where monsters show up in the local level and then no one would place.
So the chances of you making it are less than 1%. Now, again, many people will use that as motivation to use more steroids and try harder and waste their life on something they're never going to get. It's the harsh reality, and I've had so many guys come to me and say, Jeff, I'm going to be pro by next year. And I would tell them, brother, you're not going to be pro next year. You're not going to be pro in 10 years. You're not going to be pro in 20 years. And it is not because I'm trying to hurt your feelings. It is strictly because I want you to have a realistic view of what your giftedness is. So what
I agree. I have a lot of people in my Instagram DM box, Russo lifts, that have aspirations to turn pro. And realistically, I look at their physique, and this is coming from me who doesn't have genetic gifts, right? I'm the little nerd that biohacked my way here with ultimate knowledge in my like crazy discipline to prove how far, you know, a relatable person like me can get compared to these genetic super elite freaks that, you know, this sport is really made out for and it comes easy to them. I've been in conversations where you do have to bring them back to reality, right? You do have to tell them that, like, look, looking at your physique, you need so much more stage weight. Your insertions there are not that good. Like, for example, my chest insertions aren't that good, but my hamstring insertions are really good. It just depends on the individual, the way their genetics are, and the way they're responding to the drugs. And when guys tell me they've already done this many cycles and it only yielded that result, for them to continue ruining their health for a pro card, you start to really say, you know, how bad does this really mean to you before you wake up and smell the roses? Because each cycle is damaging your health. Each cycle you should be yielding the most out of it. If you're just going on a cycle and you're half-assing everything else, well, guess what? Like he said, you just wasted time and you just wasted one of the cycles, and you can only do so many big ass cycles before the body just gives up.
I tell you is, if you're really considering this, go to a local show, look at your 5th place guy or your 6th place guy and see if you match up to them. Don't just look at yourself.
I 100% agree. You know, Andrew, I've been to like 8, 9, 10 shows now. I've seen who I'm going to stand on stage with before I ever even did my first local show. I was a fan of going to the shows. I saw the stage weights they were. I saw their conditioning in person. It gave me a much broader understanding of, oh wow, I have a lot of work to do do before I get on stage if I want anything to happen of me going on stage, aka if I want to win. I need to put in way more time, and that's why you've seen me bulk for so long, because I know the stage weight that's needed, especially with my crappy genetics versus someone with better insertions. I need to out shred them theoretically, and I need to have a heavier stage weight to give myself the ability to shred down. So a lot of guys will think that they're really good to go until they go to a show and they're awakened.
In the mirror, because the mirror lies to you. What you see plays tricks on you. You want to go and you want to see if you truly measure up, take pictures of yourself, see if you have that kind of genetic giftedness. So the chances of you making it to the pros are extremely slim. Now, number two, you can expect that this sport is going to take years off of your life. I'm 56 years old now, and I have to be honest, I have no idea how long I have. To my knowledge right now, there are no major issues, but there again, I was 20 years out of the sport. I retired in my younger years, in my early 20s, didn't come back till I was 41. I didn't even walk into a gym until I was 41. So I have that sort of advantage because I had all of those years off of all of the drugs. But in my pursuit of my pro card from 41 to 50 years old, let me tell you something, there were immense amount of drug usage in that time. And the higher you make it in this sport, the more drug usage you have, the more damage you're going to do. And I know many coaches, many competitors that, like I said, are no longer with us because of kidneys that have gone bad, livers that have had to be replaced that went bad, guys that died of cancer, all of that stuff. I have a very good friend of mine right now who spent 2 years on growth hormone, PEG MGF, IGF-1, LR3, and I kept telling him, you've got to get off of that. You've got to get off of those things. I said, those things are only designed to be used in very short durations, but he would not listen to me. And I was in the gym about 6-7 months ago, and I get this text on my phone while I was leg pressing, and I get this text that said, I just found out I have stage 4 cancer. It's in his liver, it's in his chest bone, it's in his spine, and it's also in his thyroid. And all of this is directly attributable to those things that he was taking. Sadly, he won't be with us very long. And I feel terrible for him. But in our talking together, when I went to see him in the hospital.
This is super sigma based sad reality of the extremeness that goes on that no one really wants to talk about. I don't know this guy's name, but I'll give Two Pros, the channel, a complete shout because this is completely based, and this is what, again, you don't really want to see happening. You want to see harm mitigation, you want to see realistic expectations, and you want to see responsible PD abuse. I need to do a video on IGF-LR3 because I completely agree with him. It's one of the most sketchiest compounds ever, and every time I use it, it's like 2-3 weeks and then I'm fucking off it because the cancer risk is so high from the cell replication that if you have any cancer going on, guess what? You're gonna grow the fuck out of that. And if you're like this individual he's talking about, you go on it for a year, think how much cell replication you're feeding to these cancer cells, and it's just not a good recipe. And people don't understand, people don't want to learn the science, people don't want to dig down or buy a coach or buy resources to figure out how to bodybuild safer. But this is where the industry is changing these days, and we're gonna see harm mitigation take over, and this is exactly what this guy is delivering in this video.
I said, Jimmy, you know what this is from, don't you? He said, yeah, I know what it's from. And let me just tell you a warning. If you are susceptible within your genetic makeup to cancer and tumors and all of those things, if it's in your bloodline, do not take this stuff. But most guys that I know, and most guys that I've coached all the way into the pro ranks, you'll find out most of them are broke. They're scouring, looking for drugs at cheaper rates. Most of them are selling steroids to get their own steroids. Most are trying to buy a couple of bottles of testosterone at a time. Those drugs are expensive. Growth hormone, insulin, all of those things are expensive, and you're paying a huge price for it. So you can expect to be broke, not just from drugs, you can expect to be broke because a lot of times you can't afford the amount of food. And as we see, inflation is getting worse and worse. Man, it's really getting tough to support that kind of lifestyle. You're going to find out that lifestyle.
I agree again. You know, if you're going to get into bodybuilding, this is pretty much the most expensive lifestyle ever, and you should already have figured out a very good career based on college backbone, or you're a very successful, movable entrepreneur with your hands in multiple things all the time, and you figured out your money to support this habit. Because if you jump in it too early and it becomes your life and you never really build out solid income streams, guess what? This is going to take all the income, and mentally you could fall into addiction of seeing your body progress to where you in your head justify that it's worth, you know, sacrificing all your life's potential for this said unrealistic goal. In reality, if you never went down that road and you build out a career, or you build out multiple businesses, or you build out something else that would yield a much better future, you could sit there in the paradigms of whatever path you took and you could see the different outcomes, or you could foreshadow the different outcomes. So anytime I make a decision, right, there's always 6 paradigms of the decision that you make, and you have to sit there through 6 different angles of the decisions you make and foreshadow each individual path. Then you make a choice so you don't have regret.
Is extremely hard. And then number 4, bodybuilding will ruin your relationships. I can tell you this. when you are bodybuilding and you have two people in a house that are dieting for 33, 34, 36 weeks, each for a show, things get pretty crazy. And especially when you're a guy that is taking an immense amount of drugs to get to these shows, you're going to find out that psychotically, or cut. And then number 4, bodybuilding is going to ruin your relationships. I don't care if it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It can ruin family relationships with your mom and dad, your brothers, your sisters. It is amazing. The amount of drugs that you take are going to affect the way you think. I know when you're on a large amount of tren, you will swear that the sky is yellow, even though it's blue. But you are so convinced that that sky is yellow, and if anybody tells you otherwise, you are going to fight because you're just convinced you're right about everything. The drugs really do affect you in that way. When you have a husband and a wife in the same household, and they're both doing drugs to get ready for these shows, it really puts a strain on a marriage. I can tell you this from our standpoint. Everybody thought we were the perfect pro couple. My wife was a pro figure competitor. I'm a pro bodybuilder. We're both getting ready for shows. But the truth is, we were not a perfect couple at all. We were on the verge of divorce. And when I got right with the Lord in 2019, I'm going to tell you, it changed our household. That's when, after I got injured, the lockdowns came and all that stuff, we got right with the Lord, and everything changed in our house, man. And that's the only time it changes, when I laid all that stuff down and moved on in life. But bodybuilding will ruin your relationships. I know so many couples that they cheat on each other constantly, and they don't desire to. But the problem is, when you see those perfect bodies all the time, or what you consider perfect bodies, it does something to you mentally and emotionally. You become unsatisfied with what you have, and you think you want something else. And a lot of that is because of the effects of the drug on your body, the amount of testosterone you're taking. You can't control your libido. And the Bible says something very interesting. It says the eye is never filled with seeing. In other words, you can never get enough. And when you can't get enough or be satisfied, you cannot be in relationships, and it will just destroy you. That's why a lot of bodybuilders and guys in the fitness industry are known as dogs. And I can tell you, I've been there. It's not a good place to be. I have ruined relationships in the past because of my own selfishness. So understand, bodybuilding.
I mean, yeah, you're gonna have higher sexual output when you're on tons of sex hormones. It's very obvious, but again, tren definitely can ruin relationships. Do I think steroids ruin relationships? No. I've had a 10-year relationship my entire time of steroid abuse. I think people know that I am not, you know, a full-blown satanic alpha type character per se. Like, I don't like randomly juicing up, you know, bitches with sexual energy. What do I get out of that? Nothing. Like, I would much rather build something and get something back, which keeps you, you know, sigma base. So I've seen it a lot. It's gonna always end bad if you're going on a rampage and it's not publicly communicated, again, with your spouse, that you're going through that sort of situation. And normally you would want to cut it off if you are going through that sort of situation, or you would want to come to a compromise. But I definitely can see, you know, his dilemma with almost ruining his marriage because of the tren. But I will say for a fact, I'm gonna go against this a bit. Like, anytime I go on tren, I tell my girl, and then the girl checks me, and then, you know, I can distinguish that stupid tren God complex, and maybe I don't catch myself in that situation, but later, you know, it's just diffused, and we are both under the understanding that it was the androgen doing the talking. For example, I'm going to be on tren for these last 4 weeks. You're going to know that that's just something you have to deal with. And maybe, you know, it always comes back to my bipolar, which I had way before steroids I ever touched steroids. I was experiencing horrible episodes around 11 years old, and they got very, very bad around 17. You know, when I learned to control that demon, the steroids, again, I just pick out when they're changing my frequency, because I, you know, jump frequency all day. So if you learn to control your frequency, you can get a hold of this. But I definitely agree, most of the guys I see in the fitness industry, their ego is out of control. And maybe they would just benefit from doing a shroom trip, realizing what they are, and then coming back. And maybe because I've used tons of psychedelics, I'm also more based in that situation. But definitely, if you're gonna do tren and you just got a girlfriend and that relationship is still in, you know, the infancy of you building the bond, best believe tren is gonna ruin that. Now, if you have a strong ass bond and you let your partner know that this tren is gonna impact your mind, and you're completely honest, and maybe you spout off in a conversation, and then after you cool it down, you come back and be like, look, I'm sorry, this was the tren talking. I understand it's not an excuse, but I predetermined let you know that I was gonna be dealing with this for my bodybuilding show. I definitely don't wanna do this poison all year. It's going to cause kidney failure and brain damage. But for these 4 weeks, I put all this time, effort, money, diet, stress into this show. and I would like to utilize and have you there despite me kind of going off the rails. Communication is everything in relationships, and it's cool to observe his relationship because he's with an IFBB Pro figure, which is a very hard achievement, and that woman for sure is a very hard-working alpha individual to achieve that achievement, trying to have a bond with him who is an open pro. Very, very hard relationship to form. I always recommend don't date a girl in the fitness industry. I don't think I would ever date a superstar in the fitness industry and expect that relationship to be remotely real. I would definitely go into the altercation with the prerequisite of, you know, this is a cloud business move, or this is definitely not destined to last, and I would definitely have tons of guards up and be red flag hunting immediately. I think a lot of guys in the fitness industry would benefit from, again, I'm gonna be based here, a more, you know, super feminine, conservative woman who's just a lot of sunshine and not really about being a hyper competitive, again, quote unquote, masculine competitor that is constantly in perpetual vanity, like he's saying, of enough is never enough. And you guys mix that. I always recommend dating a girl outside of fitness. It really brings in a whole different world when your world already revolves around fitness. So that's my 2 cents. Don't date girls in the industry, or it has to be a special girl in the industry that knows, you know, the deal.
The chances of you making it are incredibly slim. Number 2, expect to take years off of your life, and you need to consider very carefully whether you really want to pursue that. And then number 3, expect to be broke, because to facilitate this type of lifestyle is very difficult. Clothing line and sponsors and all of that stuff, but not everybody makes it there because it's incredibly difficult. So understand you're going to be broke most of the time.
See, I don't like the whole you're gonna be broke thing. In his era, this holds true. In the clout era that I'm from, this don't hold true. There are plenty of guys on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, who, my 2 cents, are very far away from an actual legitimate pro physique. However, because of their clout, because of their relatability, their personality, and or, you know, their fake alphaness that generates a following, and or their sigma baseness of information generates following, like, there are ways to, again, get sponsorships without, you know, struggling in the fitness industry up the ranks. And my 2 cents, and maybe I'll do a separate video, is you should always already be building this brand rolling into your first couple shows. That way it's going to make competing a lot easier and a lot more fulfilling than waiting for you to get that pro card, then in your head, oh, now I can start to build the audience. I would already have the audience there relating to your come up. Like, people relate to me so much because I was that skinny little distance runner who's made it to this spot despite everyone saying I couldn't get here, and that's relatable to watch my double underdog path than it is, oh, this person just got a pro card, now he wants an audience type thing. It's about when people jump on the train to watch you go to the top. Now, in his day and age, you needed a pro card to get sponsorships. You were not anybody until you got a pro card. What I'm saying is, with modern day clout, this guy just got 17,000 views on the fucking 1K channel with 800 likes. So if he was doing this back in the day and had these resources available, he probably could have gained a lot more revenue to help his career if he was giving content like this, which is super truthful and based, back to his audience. Again, this is an old school guy, OG guy. The game was much harder when he did it than it is right now.
And then finally, just figure this one thing out if you can. What's the most important thing that we do as humans? That is, we interact with each other. We have a need for community. We have a need for people, and we have a need for closeness and for somebody to love us and understand us. And the problem in bodybuilding is it's all about you. It's all about feeding you. It's all about taking care of you. It's all about what you look like, how you feel. All of it is about you, and it will never be about the us.
See, I don't know if I agree with that, Andrew, bodybuilding being all about you. Sure, the narcissism on the individual athlete, but I always look at, like, you know, when I'm looking at an athlete, I'm like, who's his coach? Who's his trainer? Like, who's the team around him that built that individual's character that you can attribute to? It's never a one-man show, never. And it's like every individual sport gets painted like that. It's like the same thing with wrestling or distance running. Like, sure, the wrestler, when he enters the mat, he wins or loses, but all the coaching, the sparring partners. I was so good at wrestling because I was sparring every day with the number 152 in the fucking Western PA. Obviously I'm gonna be good, and I have to pay him homage. And it's the same thing with bodybuilding. It's like when you look at, again, Phil Heath, you gotta give homage to Hanny for bringing that package year after year and being there for Phil. So again, his perception of the hyper narcissism is true, but I feel like that will change. I feel like, you know, the game is changing towards harm mitigation. The game is changing to alpha to sigma. I feel like if more people woke up and realized the sigma over an alpha and called the alpha out for the fakeness, you know, the game would change. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of it already. And it's only 2023. By 2029, can you really get away with being the super narcissist fake alpha, even if you have a super genetic outlier physique? I feel like you will start to get chirped the way Reaction Cloud is, and you still will get black mirrored on what exactly you're portraying to your audience. But overall, you need to juice responsibly. You are playing with fire. You will get burned and potentially die. You cannot just abuse without tracking shit, without getting cancer screenings. I pull a cancer screening every 6 months. That guy ran IGF for a year straight without anything. All this shit needs to change. There needs to be social media influencers that let their audience know this shit and aren't fucking shadow banned like me. I need the bigger influencers who fake their way to the top to come open about it and discuss all the harm mitigation. So until that happens, this industry is going to keep going in this direction. I'll see you in my next one.